One night, one angel, 185,000 men, dead before sunrise. No swords clashed. No battle cry was heard. What walked through that camp in the darkness that no human eye could stop? Let me take you back to a city surrounded on every side, with no way out. The year was around 701 BC. Jerusalem stood alone. Outside her walls camped the mightiest army on earth, the Assyrians, led by their king Sennacherib. They had already crushed nation after nation. Fenced cities fell like sandcastles before them. Now, only one city remained standing in their path: Jerusalem, the city of God. Inside those walls sat a king named Hezekiah. He wasn't a warrior. He wasn't a conqueror. He was a man who trusted God more than he trusted swords and chariots. But trust was about to be tested in the cruelest way. The Assyrian commander, a man called a Rabshakeh, stood before Jerusalem's walls and shouted, loud enough for every soldier and every citizen to hear. He mocked Hezekiah. He mocked Judah's God. He said no God of any nation had ever saved its people from Assyria's hand. Why would Israel's God be any different? Can you imagine standing on that wall, hearing your enemy laugh at your faith? The people stayed silent, just as the king commanded. But silence didn't mean peace. Fear crept into every heart. Whispers spread through the streets. Was this really the end? Then came a letter. Sennacherib himself wrote it, boasting that Jerusalem's God could not save her, just as the gods of other nations couldn't save theirs. It was meant to break Hezekiah completely. Instead, Hezekiah did something unexpected. He didn't call his generals. He didn't count his soldiers. He took the letter and walked straight into the temple of the Lord. He spread it open before God, right there on the floor, and prayed, "O Lord, incline your ear and hear. Open your eyes and see. Save us, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone are God." No army, no weapons, just a desperate prayer from a king with nowhere left to turn. Would God answer, or would Jerusalem fall like every city before it? Outside, the Assyrian camp grew louder every day. 200,000 troops, siege towers being prepared, the sound of thousands of soldiers sharpening blades, feeding horses, laughing at the idea that Jerusalem's God could do anything to stop them. Every night, the people of Jerusalem lay awake, listening to the enemy just beyond their walls. Every sunrise brought the same dreadful question: is today the day the walls break? Hezekiah sent word to prophet Isaiah, asking him to pray. And Isaiah brought back a message so bold it seemed impossible. Sennacherib will not enter the city. Isaiah declared, he will not shoot an arrow here. By the way that he came, he will return. He will not come into the city, says the Lord. How could one prophet's words hold back an army of 200,000 men? The soldiers outside didn't hear this message. They had no idea their fate had already been decided. Not on a battlefield, but in a quiet room, through a whispered prayer and a prophet's voice. That night, the camp settled the way it always did. Fires burning low, guards standing watch, horses resting, soldiers sleeping, dreaming of the victory they were certain would come with the morning sun. They did not know that something was already moving through the darkness, something no weapon could stop, something no soldier could see coming. What walked among those tents that night would change everything. It came silently, moving between the tents like a shadow with purpose. No warning, no sound of wings, no flash of light for the soldiers to see. Just darkness and death following close behind it. The Bible tells us plainly, "And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. And when they rose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. 185,000 men, gone in a single night. No battle, no warning cry, no chance to fight back. Can you imagine the horror of the soldiers who woke up at dawn? Tents full of silence where there should have been snoring and morning orders. Row after row of men who simply never woke up. What kind of terror must have gripped the survivors walking through that camp, stepping past comrades who had laughed the night before? Picture the officers running from tent to tent, calling out names that would never answer back. Weapons still sharpened, armor still polished. meals still sitting untouched by fires that had burned down to ash, an entire war machine, silenced in a single night, without a single wound from any human hand. There was no army left to lead a siege, no war council, no confidence, just fear. The same fear they had once forced onto Jerusalem, now turned back on themselves tenfold. Word must have spread through the ranks like wildfire. Was this a plague? Was this their own gods turning against them? No one had an answer. All they knew was that the God they had mocked so openly had answered back in a way none of them could argue with. King Sennacherib, the man who had mocked God so boldly, who had boasted that no deity could stop Assyria, broke camp that very morning, just as Isaiah had said. He turned. He went home to Nineveh. He never fired a single arrow at Jerusalem's walls. The city that had no army, no weapons, no chance of survival, stood untouched. Not one stone of her walls was broken. Think about it. The same king who wrote a letter mocking Hezekiah's God now marched home in silence, leading the broken remains of what was once the greatest army on earth. But the story doesn't end there. Back in Nineveh, Sennacherib tried to rebuild his pride, but peace never returned to him. One day, while he was worshiping in the house of his own god, Nisroch, his own sons, Adramelech and Sharezer, struck him down with the sword. The very man who mocked the living God met his end at the hands of his own children, inside the temple of God who could not protect him. The mightiest king on earth could not save himself, but a praying king with no army had been saved completely. Isn't it strange how the loudest mockery often comes right before the greatest fall? Hezekiah didn't win this battle with swords. He won it on his knees, with a letter spread open before God and a whispered prayer that seemed too small for such a giant problem. And yet, one night was all it took for the impossible to happen. There was no strategy, no secret weapon, just faith when everything visible said there was no hope left. That's the lesson this story leaves behind. The battle was never really Hezekiah's to fight. He simply brought his fear honestly before God and let heaven handle the rest. Sometimes the storm around us looks unstoppable. Sometimes the enemy's voice is the loudest thing we hear. But it only takes one moment, one night, for everything to change completely. If Hezekiah had trusted his own strength that night, Jerusalem would have fallen like every city before her. Instead, he trusted the one who cannot be mocked. And that is why Jerusalem still stood the next morning, while an empire's pride lay silent in the dust. But this wasn't the only night an angel of God brought judgment that shook an entire kingdom to its core. There's another story, one where a single night of destruction fell not on soldiers, but on the firstborn sons of the most powerful empire on earth. What happened that night would set an entire nation free. Click the next video to find out what really happened when the angel of death passed over Egypt. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss a story like this again. Every video here brings the Bible to life, one story at a time. See you in the next one.